G'day and welcome to Dirty Deeds Down Under. Thank you for joining me. I've set up this channel just today for a friend and I to get together and chat about true crime, unsolved mysteries, conspiracy theories in our great country of Australia. However, I'm just doing a bit of a test run tonight and thought, well, why not talk about today's events or the events over the last couple of days in Australia, namely in Melbourne, Victoria. A lot of people have been commenting, oh, Australia's looking like a dystopian country now. Look, it's been rough, and certainly there's areas that have copped it more than others. So I'm just going to start off. We've had a few protests over the course of the last couple of months. Just to be clear, we've had here in Victoria over 200 days of lockdown since the pandemic began. And when things lock down, it means you can't have friends over, it means you can't go visiting friends, you can't have a barbecue, you can't have a birthday party, you can't really have a wedding, you can't really have a funeral. Everything just comes to a grinding halt. So there's a pretty huge impact on people's mental and emotional well-being, kids' education, families, most certainly businesses, and it's causing people to retaliate. And look, they've just been pushed as far as they can be pushed. So here we are, here's Australia. I'm just going to run through some numbers before I show you some footage of what's been going on over the last couple of days. Now, mind you, this has been going on for a while. The police have been in attendance every time there's been a peaceful protest or a freedom march, whatever you want to call them. So here we are, here's our great country of Australia, and I'll just quickly go over some numbers. So we had our first cases in late January of 2020. That means over 18 months that we've been going through this roller coaster of COVID. Australia overall has had 85,629 cases and 1,162 deaths. New South Wales, this is since the beginning of the pandemic here, New South Wales has had 51,986 cases, 295 deaths. Victoria has had 28,456 cases, 831 deaths. All other states have had less than 2,000 cases per state and less than 15 deaths per state. And notably, Northern Territory, this state here, has recorded 0 deaths. And that's sort of interesting because I'm pretty sure there's a large sort of Indigenous community or communities within the Northern Territory. And I do remember them saying that Indigenous people were high risk, so Northern Territory's done pretty well to not have any COVID deaths. So namely New South Wales and Victoria, we've been dealing with this on and off. Currently Sydney and some surrounding suburbs are in lockdown. Same thing too with Melbourne and some surrounding suburbs, even heading out some towns in regional Victoria, where I live over here. At the moment, I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see where Sydney and Melbourne are. So here we have Melbourne. Everything's in lockdown there. You can't see your friends. You can go and do your shopping or you can go and get vaccinated. Sydney's here, much the same, all in lockdown. And when I was reading those numbers, I thought it was a little bit interesting that Victoria has had roughly, very roughly, half the cases of New South Wales and almost triple the deaths. So I don't know what's happened there. I don't know if it was around hotel quarantine or nursing home bungles, not really sure. I do know, however, that the government sort of renamed the departments, whether that's to avoid any culpability, not sure, but I think a lot of people can put 2 and 2 together. So there we have it. That is what's currently going on in Australia, just numbers wise, just so you know. I think if you look at some numbers in other countries, our numbers are quite low. Our deaths are quite low. And I'm not saying that any cases or deaths are not important. but you've just got to kind of weigh it up. What's the lesser of two evils at the moment? So on Saturday, today is Monday, the 20th of September 2021. It's a Monday, so going back to the 18th, which was Saturday, there was a freedom protest in Melbourne, which is the city in Victoria. And I'm just going to share with you this footage, highlights of the day from the real Rukshan. He's an independent journalist here in Australia. He was there from somewhat beginning to end. He was pepper sprayed in the face at some point and then ended his broadcast shortly thereafter. So as you can see, people are being quite peaceful. This very Australian moment here. Unfortunately, this is the new Australia moment here, but I do quite like the beer can, Melbourne Bitter, I think, on the ground there. So things are getting a little bit tense here. I will say at this point, so I was watching at home. At this point, I actually did get a bit teary. Here's a lady who I'm assuming it's mother and daughter, could be wrong, but they were holding on to each other like they were very close. The look on this woman's face, it's just, I don't know, dismay, heartbreak, despair, don't know, something about it. Made me cry, and I don't cry very often. Yeah, I don't know, still tugs at the heartstrings. Bit of a hero there. I will say that I like a lot of police officers. I don't think they're all bad. This lady here was shouting at the camera about the impacts of mental health and kids as young as 13 wanting to commit suicide. There's some statistics I'd love to see around mental health, suicide, self-harm, substance abuse. I don't know if they'd be very accurate. So as you can see here, the police are starting to pepper spray the crowd. And the police are moving in and trying to, I'm not really sure where they were trying to push them to. They closed them in on a number of occasions. This is one of the occasions where they were closed in. So people have gone up this side walkway here. As you can see, some pushing and shoving by the police. Lots of pepper spray. There was I mean, seriously, mate. Is that like small penis syndrome or what? This lady here, she had some awesome stuff to say. I'm not sure who she was, but she was, yeah, pretty switched on, as a lot of them were. I mean, read the signs, listen to what the people are trying to say. I mean, just think logically. All of this is completely unnecessary. Just locking us in our homes for months and months on end because of this guy, Dan Andrews. That's our premier. So I'm not sure what that was. Maybe a bit of tear gas or something. Yeah, there's an older lady. I'm not sure if the footage will be here, but there is an older lady that was pushed over by the police and then pepper sprayed in the face. And I've heard that she had a concussion and a broken hip, but unsure. That's not verified. The traffic were mostly supportive, tooting their horns in support, kept people fired up. I'm sure a lot of people were calling out to them, telling them to go home, but I don't think we're ever going to get anywhere if we all just stay home. So this is where they had the crowd blocked in, and the crowd have just decided to break through. I believe some injuries occurred during this moment, but I don't think any of these people came out with the intention of anybody getting hurt. It certainly didn't seem that way to me. So that's that. I'm just going to find, so today, and look, to be fair, I'll probably be only able to find mainstream media footage. Just typing in tradie protest Melbourne. So I'm going to play some footage from Channel 7. And I'll just mute it again so that I don't know why. So I was watching from about 8:30 this morning, on and off. Started off at 8:30. There was about 15 tradies. So for those of you who don't know, if you're watching from somewhere that's not Australia, tradies are what we refer to plumbers, plasterers, builders, electricians, carpenters, all of those kind of blokes are tradies. And as you can see, got the high vis gear, the work boots. You can clearly see that these are workers. Where they are is in Melbourne, in the city, and they're out the front of this CFMEU building. So the CFMEU is the Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union. Basically what's happened is it's been announced that construction workers need to produce by Friday of this week a booking to have their vaccine, and I'm sure there was another date set for when they all had to be vaccinated by. Of course, you're now mandating a vaccine, and you can't expect everybody to go along with that, particularly when the vaccine doesn't do what it says it's meant to do on the box. People are still getting infected. People are still being able to pass on the virus. People can still die even when vaccinated, and also run the risk of getting a vaccination injury. We know they exist. Let's stop pretending that they don't. So basically there was 15 guys this morning. By the afternoon, that crowd had swollen into, I'm not sure, I don't know if they've released the actual numbers. It says hundreds here. At one point I thought potentially there might even be over 1,000, but I could be wrong. So they kept them waiting for hours on end. I think, if memory serves, one of the union guys did come out, tried to encourage all of the workers to march down to Parliament House, because that's where the real protest should be taking place. I then saw all of the tradies turn around and start booing that guy, and they stood their ground out the front of this union building. Basically, they would be paying union fees to this company to represent them, to protect their human rights, to protect their rights as workers. And they're wanting to know that the union are going to support them. Anyway, what happened, I don't know where that guy went, whether he went back inside. They continued to wait. Someone said that they would go in and represent them, was allowed into the building. They came out, they tried to talk to the crowd. The crowd obviously didn't like what they were hearing, and started booing and yelling over the top of what they were trying to say. And whoever was coming out of that building, the union workers coming out of that building, started to retreat backwards into the building. The tradies didn't like that, obviously, because they've just waited for hours for communication. Now, I'm assuming potentially the office is closed because of COVID. Maybe you could, outside of this situation, just walk in off the street and go and talk to a union rep. That's not what's happening at the minute. I'm guessing the office is closed. It's probably hard to get through to them on the phone. Clearly, all of these people are not getting the answers that they want. So there was a bit of a scuffle at the door here. You can see that objects have been thrown at the door. Out come these people that work for the CFMEU. I did make the comment earlier that they looked a little bit underbelly, but that's just a harmless comment, not an accusation. You can see the police are getting, well, just as worked up, I suppose. So all of these tradies are starting to somewhat disperse, but they're trying to stand their ground. So these are rubber pellet guns. And I'm pretty sure, so this is coming from Channel 7 News, it's probably not going to show the entire thing, hence why I wanted to talk over the top of it, because I was watching as it happened. The real Rakshan, who I shared a video of earlier, he was there again from 8:30 in the morning. Not sure what battery he has, but it must be quite impressive. So here what's happening is the police are just trying to push the crowd back away from this building to protect the workers. The front door's broken now. There's every chance that these tradies might be angry enough that if the police weren't there, that they would be in that building demanding answers, and it might not be pretty. I'll be interested to see if Channel 7 show when police started firing into the crowd with rubber bullets. I think they broke a car window. At some point, I did see a guy on the ground, his shirt was off. He'd been hit probably a couple of times with rubber bullets, had his hands in the air. The real Rakshan ended his live stream. Someone was arrested and they were calling out that they hadn't done anything wrong. So this has obviously happened. It's interesting to me that there seems to be no coverage from the 5 or 6 hours that those people waited there peacefully to speak to their union reps. I will add that when people started to throw things at the door, people inside that union building were spraying them with, I don't know, a fire extinguisher or a fire hose, I'm not sure, but spraying them to get them away from the building. I mean, I just would not like to be a police officer at the minute. I would most certainly have been going on stress leave last week, had avoided both of them. And I suppose, you know, the underlying message of a lot of these tradies is that they want the right to work. Well, I suppose the police officers should have the right to work also. And I wonder what will happen once it's mandated that police officers have to have vaccines. I mean, again, they just don't do what they say they're going to do on the box. I quite worry about impacts on reproductive systems, what might happen 5 years down the track, 10 years down the track. They just haven't been tested enough. And like I said, they don't even do what they say they're going to do. People are still dying. And yeah, don't even get me started on how miraculous it is that the flu just is non-existent this year. So as you can see, the police are sort of moving the tradies around a little bit. I'm not sure what they're gathering over here for. At one point, they were directly opposite the road, with police in between the tradies and the business on the road. It looks like the police are moving a bit closer, quite possibly just to put a further barrier around this business. Yeah, I'm looking, we're about 7 minutes in, so I'm half assuming that we're just not going to see the rubber bullets, and the mainstream media wouldn't want you to see the rubber bullets, nor do they seem to have wanted to show you how peacefully those people stood there and how articulately they demanded someone represent their rights and their freedoms. These people that they pay to represent their rights. Insane. There was comments during the live stream, that were saying stop paying your fees, but you know, I don't think you just 1 week decide, oh, I think I'm going to have trouble at work this week, I better just pay 1 week's of fees. These people have been paying their union fees probably for years. It becomes an investment. And you go, that's okay, I'm going to keep paying it because at some point I might need these people. All these tradies are now asking, where is my union rep when I actually need them? Haven't needed them for 10 years, got a good work record, paid my union dues on time. I don't know, just look at these blokes from this union. I mean, like, what's going on there? I mean, the whole thing is this all could have been avoided if they just spoke to their people and actually did what they're being paid to do. But look at these blokes. Like, no thanks to meeting you down a dark alley. Yeah. Kind of not what I expected. I kind of expect with the union it's some feisty little lady in a lavender suit. These guys, far out. Anyway, sadly, there is nothing funny about what's been going on the last couple of days. It's probably more of a case if you don't laugh, you cry sometimes. So basically, these guys are saying they'll be back every day, whether they go back to that business, because I'm assuming that the police are going to have to fence it off now. I don't know where they're going to go, but they're saying they'll be back every day. I'm also assuming these union workers won't be going back to the office tomorrow. I'm surprised there's so many in there today. That sort of goes against COVID rules. You're meant to be at 25% capacity, and I think that's regional, so I don't actually know for Melbourne. I'm assuming if you can work from home, you must work from home. How there's so many union blokes there in one building, don't know. But no one's arresting them. Yeah, I don't know what to say, guys. I mean, to give you an idea of the message, I mean, forget what this guy's saying. For our kids was one of the phrases they were chanting. Fuck Dan Andrews. Choose your side. You work for us. They've been pretty adamant that they'll be back every day. You know, one guy was sort of screaming out, you know, you want to vaccinate my 12-year-old daughter. I don't know, like I think I'm a little bit of a common sense kind of person. I don't go too far off with the fairies. My common sense just says the impact of all of this is far greater than the impact of this disease. Like I said, the mental health, so kids can't go to school, so child abuse and neglect is going unnoticed at the minute. Family violence is through the roof. I mean, everyone's tensions are high. That's why things like this are happening. And if you think that people are just going to go home and go, oh, well, I got that off my chest, when they wake up tomorrow and nothing's been done, nothing's changed, no one is listening to them, what choice do you have but to do it all over again? It's a shame that it got out of hand. Could have been dealt with better. How on earth are there this many blokes in that building? I mean, I'd be interested to know how many officers are in there, but like that is a lot of people in an office space, particularly in Melbourne. I have a tiny office at work and only 2 of us can be in it at a time. In a town where there's been 4 cases since the pandemic began, and that was very early on. We haven't had a case for over a year now. And we're still wearing masks and we're still only able to leave home for a certain number of reasons. Can't have a friend over for a drink. Have to drink through my mask if I'm having a drink outside of a pub. I mean, really? I don't know, the way that police officer was just lining those officers up, it reminded me of, you know, like when you're at school and you have to line up and arms apart and you're not listening, so the teacher has to come over and physically move you. That's what that looked like. I mean, I do feel for the police. They're just trying to do their job too for the most part, but, you know, stuff happens that makes you think, okay, well, it's going a bit too far. There seems to be a lot of, I'm guessing maybe they were short on police this day, because if you look back at the police group, I mean, what is the go with this cameraman? He's making me feel sick. Oh, but there's some police officers there that look like they're half dressed in casual gear. You know, maybe a detective or something. And I would think it's odd to have a detective doing this kind of riot sort of response. Yeah, look, you can just see that tempers are boiling over. People have had enough. I don't agree with everything that's shouted in the faces of police. I don't know if they want to be there. I don't know how they feel about the vaccine. And of course, there's always a couple in every crowd that just take it too far. And then, of course, everybody comments that they've been smoking meth. Things do get a bit carried away. But for the most part, they're really just trying to give out a message. And look at these blokes. Is it just me? There you go. And an ad. Well, thank you for joining me. I'll keep you posted. Hopefully there'll be more footage and possibly even another protest tomorrow. I mean, those tradies are adamant that they'll be back every day. Just like I said, it'll be interesting to know where they gather next time. Be interesting to see if they're ever really heard, if their concerns are addressed, if there's any backpedaling on mandating this vaccine. I can tell you my husband has a letter or a text message or an email or something saying that he's required to get a vaccine. We're not on board. And it's really going to have to be push come to shove. It's just how far can someone be pushed? And I sincerely thank people with the balls big enough to be out there and actually fighting for our freedoms. It's difficult here. I've got a feeling if I put on a freedom rally, there'd be me and 3 other people at the park. Probably would have ordered too many sausages. Thank you so much. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow, see how we go, and talk about as well what's in store for down the track. Hopefully I can get a hold of my friend, and we're going to talk about some cases that are quite well known in Australia first off the bat, some active cases, and then we're going to look at some false flag events, depending which way you view it. Thanks again. See ya.